Now, we want two systems to communicate. I have person 1, person 1, person 2. The person 1, the system 1, system 2 is a service consumer whom we call as a client, service provider whom we call as server. Now, client want to request some data. The client want to request for some data where the server want to give some response. Client want to request for some data and the server want to give some response. When a client is requesting for some data and server is giving some response, the question is, in which format the client has to request the data, how do they communicate with each other, what is the protocol they are using, how do they communicate with each other, we need to understand. If two systems want to communicate with each other, they need a set of rules. If two systems want to communicate with each other, they need a set of rules. That set of rules we call as protocol. Protocol. So it's a set of protocol. It's a set of rules. Protocol is a set of rules. If two systems want to communicate with each other, we need a set of rules which we are calling as a protocol. So how many types of protocols we have? Some of the popular protocols are HTTP, TCP, IP, then we have SM, FTP. Like this, we have a set of protocols. So protocol is a set of rules which the two systems will follow to communicate. Like person 1 want to speak to person 2. When two people want to speak to each other, they have to follow some language. They have to obey some grammar. If two people want to communicate with each other, they have to follow some language and they have to obey the grammar of the language. Here, the language and the grammar what we are using is called, here the grammar and the language what they are using is called protocol. Here the grammar and the language what they are using is called protocol. Then, if two systems are using a set of rules given by a protocol, if they want to exchange the data, in which format they are going to exchange the data. So I told you already, it is going to be either in the form of JSON or in the form of XML. So what is the format in which both the systems will exchange the data? Or what is the protocol both the systems are following to communicate? So what is the protocol? Protocol is a set of rules that systems are obeying to communicate with each other. Protocol is a set of rules that two systems are agreeing to obey. Protocol is a set of rules which both the systems are agreeing to obey. Now, using this protocol are rules they are trying to communicate. While they are communicating, the format in which they want to exchange the message, they have to convey. Format of the data is JSON or XML on the protocol. So, what is the most popular protocol? HTTP is the most popular protocol, right? So, why you require a protocol? Protocol is a set of rules which both the parties, like I told. When I am talking to you, you listen. When you are listening, okay, when you are speaking, I will listen. This is what? This is a mutual understanding. This is a mutual understanding. While I am sending the data, I will send you the XYZ message. Okay, XYZ. While you are sending the response, you send as a ABC message ABC. So what is it? This is the format which we both agreed to communicate. So what is the mode of our communication? In which format we are going to exchange the data. So this is called a protocol and the format of your data. So who is involved in the communication? Your communication involves a client and a server. So your client is a service consumer, server is a service provider. The person who provides the service is called service provider. The person who consumes the service is called service consumer or a client. So who are the actors who are involved here? Client, server or a client, server or service consumer, service provider. Okay. Now let us start about HTTP protocol. So when you are going for a HTTP protocol, what is this HTTP? Hypertext. Hypertext transfer protocol. When you say hypertext transfer protocol, We are saying hypertext transfer protocol. What is that hypertext? Generally, I have a block here. Look at this. I'm using now. What is the difference that you find between this and this? What is, if you click on this, is any page is opening there? And so what is this? It's a normal text. It's a normal text. When I click on this, what is happening? It is taking the navigation to another page. It is taking the navigation to another page. So what we call this as hypertext. Hypertext. So the message or text contain some hyperlinks which will take you to the other pages or which will navigate to another page. So this page is a hypertext page or text page, normal text page. It's a hypertext page. It has some of the hyperlinks. When you click on those links, it is taking the control to another page. Are you getting the point? So it is a hypertext. So hypertext. When you click on the hypertext, it takes you to the another page or navigate to another page, which we call hypertext. Okay. Normal text is this is a normal text. Simply you are displaying a normal text and hypertext. So that message contains the hyperlinks. Hypertext transfer protocol. When you want to learn about hypertext transfer protocol, what you need to understand is right. I want to learn about hypertext transfer protocol. The same copy I have given you. Don't write any notes. The same hard copy I have given. Whatever I am showing right now, the same hard copy I have given. Right. Alright. So hypertext transfer protocol. So when you say hypertext transfer protocol, it is a request response format or a client server protocol. It is a request response format or a client server protocol. So what happened? Client will be sending a request to the server and the server will be giving a response to the client. So in my case, client can be any one of your mobility device. Client can be any one of the system on which you are opening a browser and requesting the data. The client can be any one of the system from where you are opening a browser and requesting the data. So client, it can be a mobile device, it can be a desktop, it can be any mobility device which supports the browser. Now using a your client, I am sending a request to the server and server is giving a response back to you. So client will send a request, server will give a response. In our case, who is your client? Any device from where you are accessing your browser. Will be what? Your client. So your browser is generally your client. So I told satishmaila.in.com/integration.html. It is my browser. Right. So whenever you are trying to request, what is the underlying structure it is going to follow? So let us understand a few technical points here. Hypertext transfer protocol. HTTP stands for what? Hypertext transfer protocol. Then next, HTTP is a connectionless protocol. What do you mean by connectionless protocol? We are taking why it is a connectionless protocol. HTTP is a connectionless protocol. Why is a connectionless protocol? Look at the point. Now, is a client, is a server, then client, server, then I told boss, this is my username password, then server told Satish, I recognize you, what do you want? So I have sent my username password, then server recognized my username password and asked the client, Satish, what do you want? Then I told, boss, I want sum of two numbers. Then the server gave a response, fine, result is started success. Now what happened? It is one transaction. I requested for a connection. Server established a connection, asked what do you want. Then the client told, boss, I need the sum of two number. It made the sum of two number, gave the reply back to the client. Now, the operation is completed. The transaction is completed. Once this transaction is completed, whatever the transaction is completed, then this connection is lost. Again, I asked, boss, I want sum of 50 and 90. Then the server asks you, who are you? The server asks you, who are you? That means, already I gave my username, password, it recognized me, and asked me what do you want. I told sum of 10 and 20, it made a sum, gave the reply back. Then I told, give the sum of 50, 90, and it asked, who are you? So what does it mean? Whatever the previous communication that you done with the server will not remember this once the operation is completed. Once you make the request, once the request is processed successfully, server will not recognize or remember, okay, what it has done. Again, when you request for some data, server asks you again, boss, who are you? That means what? Again, I have to prove who I am. Boss, this is my username, password, give me the sum of 50, 90. Satish, I recognize this is your sum 140. Then ask, can you give me a sum of 10, 10? Then again it asks you, who are you? A simple example, when you go to ATMs, there are two types of ATMs you find. One is, will swipe the card, make a transfer, okay, enter the PIN number, say withdraw 20,000 rupees. That's it, thanks for using it. If you want to make another transaction, again it is asking you to swipe. There are other type of ATMs where you swipe, make a withdraw, then it says, do you want to have another transaction? When I say yes, how much amount? It will not ask you your PIN number again. Are you getting my point? There are two types of ATMs what we have. We insert our ATM card, swipe the card, and say, enter the PIN number, it asks you what you want. I told withdraw. How much? I told 20,000. Give me 20,000. Thanks for using our bank. Then immediately if I want to make one more withdraw, again it asks you, boss, if you want to make another withdraw, again insert the card, swipe the card, then again ask you PIN number, enter the PIN number, again choose what you want. So what is this? Every swipe is independent. If I swipe the card, the previous transaction what you done with the ATM will not remember it. So every time you want to make a transaction, I have to reprove myself. This is one type of ATM. Other type of ATM is what? You swipe the card or insert the card, you make a transaction, they'll ask you, do you want to make another transaction? When they say yes, it will not ask me a PIN number. Let me show me what you want. So what is that? There, whatever the communication that I made earlier, still it remembers me. Satish, still I remember you. Do you still want to make another transaction? Yes, go ahead. Is it asking my PIN number again? It's not asking. So what is that? It's a stateful connection. It's a stateful connection. That means whatever the communication I made with you, that is remembered. With the same connection, I can make n number of requests. When it says stateless, once I make a connection, request a data, what the response is given back, connection is lost. Again, if I want to request anything, again I have to start from the beginning, prove the request for the data. So what is that called? Stateless protocol. So your HTTP is a stateless protocol and it is a connectionless protocol. I'll come back. It is a stateless protocol and it is also a connectionless protocol. Now what is stateless and connectionless? There are two different terms here. Look at the point clearly. HTTP is a stateless protocol. HTTP is a connectionless protocol. Stateless protocol and connectionless protocol. Now when you go with this, look at the format. This is a client, this is a server. Client and server. Now, client request for a data. What's the client request for a data? Server will receive the request. A request is received by the server. Once the server receives the request, whatever the connection that is established, that is removed. Client is sending a request to the server. once the server receive the request, whatever the connection that is established is disconnected, then server will process the request. Once the server process the request, then it will find out from which client we received this request, re-establish a connection, then send a response message. So what is this called? Connectionless. Once the client will send a request to the server, client will establish a connection with the server, then send a request. Once the server receives the request, server will disconnect from the client. Client, what the client will do? Again, I am making it here. What the client will do? Client will first establish a connection. Client will establish the connection. Once the connection is established, client will request some data. You get some request. Once you get a request, client will make a request. Once the client make a request, it will go to the server. Once it go to the server, what happened? The server understand what you are requesting, then the server will disconnect the connection. Process the logic of the server. Once everything is processed, then server will re-establish a connection to the client. Then send the response message. Sends the response message. Are you getting my point? Is that was clear? There is a reason it is called connectionless protocol. What is the status protocol? What is the status protocol? You make a request. You first establish a connection. Request some data. Server has given you a response. You requested the data. Establish connection. Request data. Response is given. Request the data and response is given. Once you give the response, what happened? Whatever the transaction happened, server will not remember. Again, if you are making any request, what should you do? Again, if you want to request any data, again I have to establish connection. Again, send a request, response. So every transaction has to establish one new connection. Because the server will not remember what you have done in the previous transaction. There is a reason it's called stateless protocol. So HTTP means what? Hypertext transfer protocol. Now, what is the hypertext transfer protocol? It is a stateless protocol. Stateless means what? Whatever the previous communication that you made will not be remembered with the server. Every transaction is a new transaction. For every new transaction, you have to re-establish the connection, re-authenticate yourself. For every transaction, you have to re-authenticate yourself. Then, it is a connectionless protocol. The moment you send a request to the server, once the server receives a request, immediately server will disconnect from the client and process its logic. Once the logic is completed, server will re-establish the connection to the client, send the response. That is the reason it's called connectionless protocol. Then, next, it is working on application layer. HTTP protocol is working on what? Application layer. So generally, we have transport layer. On the top of the transport layer, is going to use application. Right. HTTP is a Application layer protocol. It is not worried how you are sending the packets, how you are receiving the packets. I'm not worried. What is the format you are following? What is the procedure you are following? How you exchange the data? I'm not worried. I'm only worried. I sent a request. Did I get the response or not? Application layer will only take care about what? I sent a request. Did I receive the response or not? How to send this request? How to receive the response? To how many packets you divided? What is the overheads of the packet? How do you recognize the message? How do you recognize it's the start of the packet? It's the end of the packet? How do you recognize the first packet? How do you recognize it's the second packet? It is not the duty of application layer. Application layer is what? I sent you a request, did I get the output? I requested a data, did you give me the output? Now what is the procedure you are following? How did you transfer the request to the third party? How did you break the data into packets? What is the size of the packet? What is the order of the packet? Okay, what is the size of the packet? What is the order of the packet? Are you using a connectionless or connection full? It is not worried about application layer. So it is not going to worry about whether it's a TCP or UDP, right? It's only worried about did I send the request? Did I get the response? Now the process that followed to transfer the data from your client to the server or receive the data from the server to the client, that is taken care by transport layer. That will have your TCP or UDP. Okay. So TCP, whatever the TCP protocol we are using, that is taken care by transport layer. Right. So application layer only worried about I sent a request, did I receive the response or not? Okay. So it's a HTTP is only application layer protocol is an application layer protocol which is standing above the transport layer. Okay. So what is that? HTTP is a protocol, hypertext transfer protocol, which is a stateless, which is a connectionless, and it is working on application layer. It is working on application layer. Are you clear about the format? Then when you go to the HTTP, we have different versions. 1.0. So prior to 1.0, we even have 0.9, 1.0. But 0.9 is very, very long, outdated. So 1.0, 1.1. Today everyone is using. Okay, still everyone is using 1.1, but it is already 2.0 is available. Right? But most of our systems still go with what? 1.1. So 1.0, 1.1, 2.0. What is this? In the 1.0, it is not consistent. Connection is not consistent. Connection is not consistent means every request you make, it should be a new connection. Every request you make, it should be new connection. Send the request, receive the data, transaction is completed. Again, you want to make a connection, establish a new connection, request the data, response is there. So every request should be what? New connection. Every request should be what? New connection. Every transaction will be a new connection. Okay. But if you want to maintain the same connection for multiple transactions, in the HTTP 1.0, one transaction, if you want to make a transaction, establish a connection, you establish a connection, response came back, is lost. Again, I want to make a request, again should be what? One more connection. But I want to use the same connection for multiple transactions, then we need to go for keep alive. When you go to the protocols, let me show you some diagrams to give you an idea. Okay, let me show you some diagrams here. So when you go to so we'll be using a called keep alive. When you say keep alive, boss, don't close the connection. Yeah. You are able to see a connection, keep alive. Connection keep alive. When you say connection keep alive, boss, your HTTP 1.0 is a non-persistent. That means when you make a request, once the transaction is completed, connection is closed. No, I don't want to close the connection. I want to use the same connection for multiple transaction. Then when you send a request, I'll keep connection keep alive. Server will send a response, connection keep alive. Then the client will send a request again, connection keep alive. So until you keep that connection alive, we can use the same connection for multiple requests. In general, by default, 1.0 is non-persistent. When you make a request, response comes, connection is closed. Again, I want to make a request, again establish a connection, one connection, one request. One connection, one request. Non-persistent. But if you want to use the same connection for multiple requests in the HTTP 1.0, then I have to use an attribute called connection keep alive. Keep alive, timeout 10 seconds. You are able to see it. Keep alive, timeout 10 seconds. Connection keep alive. You will find there. Live agent. Okay. Some diagrams will be finding. So the connection keep alive. By using those two attributes, we will be keeping. By using the two attributes, connection and time, okay, keep alive. By using them, we maintain the same connection for multiple transactions. But by default, what is it? Non-persistent. But in the HTTP 1.1, by default, every connection is a persistent. By default, every communication is a persistent. By default, every connection is a persistent. You do not keep alive. By default, it is alive. Unless you manually disconnect it. Unless you specify to disconnect it, it is by default keep alive. Now, 1.0 is by default connection is lost. In HTTP 1.1, by default connection is established. In 1.0, if you want to use the same connection for multiple transactions, you have to specify maintain the connection, don't close the connection. In HTTP 1.1, by default it's maintained. If you want to close it, you have to specify pause after one transaction closing. What is the basic difference here? Right. What is the basic difference here? Right. So there's other issues like IP address configs, there are a lot of issues. With respect to our Salesforce, we are not worried about that. Okay. So basically, we are understanding what is it 1.0, 1.1, and 2.0. Okay. So right now the people are also using what 2.0. Okay. Now these are basic versions 1.0, 1.1, 2.0 are the versions of the HTTP protocol what we are using. Okay. Then 1.1 is a major revolution in this protocol. The version of HTTP 1.1 is a major change. 1.1 to 2.0 is like very minor changes are there, but major changes from 1.0 to 1.1 is a non-persistent to persistent. Okay. Then let us go to the next step. When you are going with the HTTP protocol, what are the things that you need to take care first? You are going with the HTTP protocol, very good. But what are the major things that you have to take care of? First thing, you have to understand what is the URL. People keep on using the words called URL, URI, URL. Sometimes the people say URL, sometimes the people say URI, sometimes the people say URL. What is this URL, URI, URL? Right. Now, this is a URL. URL. It is a resource location. That resource location may be identifier or it may be a URL. When you say URL, if this is a URL, 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 the URL can be URI or URN. What is URL stands for? Uniform Resource Locator. The I stands for identifier, N stands for name. I stands for identifier, N stands for name. So URL can be a URI or URL. URL can be a URI or URL. URI is what? Location. Let's say this is a path of my resource. This is a path of my resource or the location of my resource. Path of my resource or location of my resource. Where the URL stands, like I told you, I quickly repeat you. I told. This is I given lower towers 1. Now this is the URL of my location. You are giving an address name. You are giving a address. What is the address here? Now this is the address of lower towers. In that tower 2, in that flat 111 is my address. Now you are giving a name. What is the name? What is the name of the resource? Unique name. So you are giving Satish. What is Satish? What is Satish? Name of the resource. Name of the resource. Now what is this address of the resource? If you come to this flat, you will be finding a resource called Satish. If you come to this flat, you will be finding a resource called Satish. Now this is the name of the resource, and this is your address of the resource. This is a URL, this is a URI, and this is URN. The name of the resource, name, using the unique name. Now when you generally go with the book names, if you go with the book names, how the book names will be there? ISBN number. ISBN number is the beginning for every book. That means what? The number is unique for everyone. The number is unique. With that number, you can find out any book which is published in the world. With that number, we can identify any book published in the world. Then you are not giving an address. Then you are giving what? Name. The resource name you are giving. With that URL number, with that ISBN number, you can find out any one of the resource. Now in a company, they give an employee ID. Let's say employee ID. With an employee ID, we can find out the resource details, all the details. I did not have the address. Now you may be working in Hyderabad branch of Capgemini or Bangalore branch of Capgemini or Chennai branch. If I know the employee ID, I can find out your data. I don't need the details, address. If you want to find out the address, boss, okay, Hyderabad, Gachibowli, Capgemini, right? Capgemini, then Tower 1, in that, let us say, Satish. Instead of that, you are giving Cap 001001. If you give this ID, you can find out my details from anywhere in the Capgemini branch. But Capgemini branch, my ID is what? My employee ID is what? My employee ID is what? You are with that ID you can find out. Now it doesn't matter if you want to find my details, you do not have the complete details about me. Like Satish, Hyderabad, Gachibowli, Capgemini, Tower 2, working for a finance, okay, finance domain. Now if you go with this, then followed by Satish. There is one way of finding it. Otherwise, if you know my employee ID, then you can simply type the employee ID, get my details. So with the employee ID, you are able to find me uniquely. With my employee ID, you are able to find me uniquely. Otherwise, the complete address. So the complete address will become what? URI. Resource identifier. How you are identifying the resource? The URN is the name. The name which can identify you uniquely. Resource name or resource location. Address location or the name. Address location or the name. Are you getting my point? In my company, my ID can be a name, URL. My ID can be a URL. With that URL, you can find out the details. Or else, the address, the complete path, my profile page will be there. If you give the path of my profile, you need to open that path of my profile. So let's say company name, employees data, so okay, so domain, so being then Satish. That also give me complete details. Or if you give me my employee ID, that also give me complete details. So here, my employee ID becomes what? URL. The complete URL becomes what? The complete address I am giving the complete address what I am giving becomes what? URL, URI. Are you getting my point? Did you follow? Did you follow my data? Did you follow? URI is address. URL is unique. Okay, name which can identify you uniquely. That is, which can identify the resource uniquely. Right, boss? Clear for everyone? So URL can be a URI or URL. URL can be a URI or URL. So most of the cases we will be using what? URI. That's the reason there is a lot of conflict between URL and URL. Sometimes documents say URL, sometimes the documents say URI. Every URI is a URL. Every URI is a URL, but every URL is not a URI. Every URI is a URL, but every URL is not a URI. Right. That's the reason. Wherever I have URI, I can simply say it's a URL. Wherever I have URI, I can simply say URL. Are you clear about this? URL can be a URI or URL. URL can be a URI or URL. URL is the address of the resource. URL is the unique identification of the unique name for the identification of the resource. Address or the unique name. Address or the unique name. Both together we call it as URL. What is the purpose of this? Both of them are used to identify the location of the resource. It may be address or it may be name. Both of them are used to identify the location of the resource. As both of them are used to identify the location of the resource, they are called as URL. I hope you are clear. Right. So first, let us understand this. So what are the things that we are going to find out? First, URL. URL stands for Uniform Resource Locator. When you look at the Uniform Resource Locator, what will be the syntax of the URL? Your URL syntax is going to be protocol, host name, port number, path and file name. Protocol, host name, port number, path and the file name. So protocol. What is this protocol? It can be HTTP, FTP, SMTP, TCP, any one of the protocol. Right. Host name. Host name is your DNS name. Your DNS name is what? Basically, every server will have an IP. My resource is previously, okay, one IP, one host. Earlier, one IP address, only one application we can host. We cannot have multiple IP addresses for the application. Previously, and now a single server is able to host multiple websites now. But previously, it's one IP, one host. Okay, look at the format. This server is identified with IP address, let us say 192.2.34.1. This is my IP address. If I want to access my system, so earlier I used to say 192.2.34.1. Some port number I used to give slash. So how your server is identified? Your server is identified based on what? IP address. That's the reason I told you previously one IP address, only one hosting. One IP address, only one hosting. Because the people used to access to what? IP address. One IP address. Now they used to access like this. Now what happened? In a single IP address right now, we are able to host multiple applications. Okay. Now instead of hosting with IP address, what the people are doing to remove this? Instead of 192.2.3.1, they given Captain Force solver. Captain Force solver. So instead of this IP address, what I am giving now? I am giving Captain Force solver. Right. So that IP is removed with replaced with your domain name service. Your domain name service. Previously we used to access with IP address. Now we are replacing the IP with what? Domain. Which is easy for you. With IP address or accessing with the domain name. Domain name. Right. The conflict will be removed. Previously one server, one host. One server, one host. But now one server can host multiple applications. One server can host multiple applications. One server can host multiple applications. Now if I give the same IP address, which application you are accessing? Which application on the server you are accessing? Right? That's the reason they remove the conflict. They started a DNS, domain name service. Okay, let's not go in detail. Right? Understand that IP is replaced with naming services. IP is replaced with naming services. Okay. So what we have got? We got Captain Force solver. What is this? Host name. Your host name can be an IP address. Your host name can be DNS name. Your host can be an IP address or DNS name. So host name. What is this? DNS name. Some example or IP address. Your host name can be IP address or a DNS. Host address or a DNS. Host address or a DNS. Host address or a DNS. Previously, one system is have only one IP address. That's also one point. Okay. But now we have multiple IPs for the system. We can regenerate the multiple IPs. Okay. Now I'll tell you. So let's more of networking things. Let's not get on to the networking part. So the DNS. So what is that host name? It's the name of your server or name of your service. Then port number. What is this port number? Let us say two systems want to communicate, boss. When two systems want to communicate, look at the format. This is system 1, this is system 2. If two systems want to communicate, they have some roles here. If two systems want to communicate, Ports are like a door. Ports are like a door. If the system want to send any message from the system, if the system is sending any message using this port, if the system is sending any message using this port, if the system is sending any message using this port, like let's say packet 1, packet 2, now the other system also open the same door. If the other system open the same door, then the message will be delivered. So both the systems has to work on the same door. If I open this door, you cannot open this door. The other person cannot open. Whatever the door I am opening, you have to open the same door. So what is this door called? Boss, I am sending the connection on the port number 80. You also open the port number 80. This is the message. So port number on which port your communication is going on. So by default, HTTP will have port number as 80. If you are not mentioning any port number, generally you are supposed to send the port number like it's a www.richmala.in :80/. This is how you are supposed to send. This is how you are supposed to send. But you are not sending. Are you sending this 80 number? No. Why? You don't give by default number is 80. By default number is 80. By default number is 80. If you don't give by default number is 80. The port numbers also will be three categories. Public port numbers. Okay. Then we have specific like specific. There is you design it or private. Public is known to everyone. Specific is you can define your specific port numbers for this. Private is if anybody want to own a port number. Let us say one of the examples for your private port number. Like you are going for media channels. Media, movie channels, listen, they'll have a specific port number, which the communication goes on. Okay. They own it, they purchase it, they purchase the port number. You're not the parent of that will be purchased. So we have public, specific and private. Public is open to everyone, is already known, well known, popular port numbers, I can say. Popular port numbers. What are the popular port numbers? When you install the Oracle, generally most of you might have done Tomcat, right? So Tomcat, what is it? 88. Okay, when you are doing the Oracle installation, what they say? Port number 1521. Am I right? Generally they say 1521 or 80 port number 80. So there are specific port numbers for this. Okay. So popular port numbers, default port numbers, specific what you want to define or private. So generally, even HTTP will have what? HTTP will have what? Default port number is 80. Whatever the port number I open, the other system also had to open the same port number, then only the communication will happen. So whatever the request I am sending, I will say I am communicating on port number 80, the other person also going to receive the request on port number 80, will respond to you, take the request, process your request. Okay. So what is the message here? Port number. The port number, then the server will listen or respond. Port number. Then path of the file is name of your resource. So whenever you are defining a URL, what is the URL? URL will have protocol, host name, port number, path of the file. Protocol can be any one of the HTTP, SMTP, FTP or Telnet or TCP, whatever it is. Your host number can be, both the server and client will communicate on the same port number. If a client is sending a request on the port number 80, server will result the request on the port number 80 only. If server is sending a response on the port number 80, the client also will result the response on port number 80 only. Right. On which port number you want to give, you can configure it. It's not necessary that always have to go with 80. You can change it if you want. But whichever the port number you have given, other party also will listen on the same port number. Right. Host name. Host name can be what? Your IP address of the server or domain name service. Okay. What is the advantage? Replacing the IP address with the domain name. Your DNS domain name, website domain name and all this stuff. Okay. So port name. Host name can be what? IP address or host name can be what? IP address or DNS name. Port number. Port number is the port on which the client and server communicating or listening, conveying the message. Path of the file, we know what is the path of the file. I hope you are clear with this format. Everybody got the URL of the request. If you are making any request, you have to go with the URL. The URL will be in the form of protocol, hostname, port, path of the file. Everyone is good with this example? What is the structure of the URL? Right? That URL can be what? Again, URL can be what? URI or URL. Now this is a, now tell me whether this is a URI or a URL. This is what? URI. URI. Every URI is URL. There is a reason they are calling it as URL. Every URI is a URL. So whenever we call URL, don't be confused. It can be a URI or URL. If you are looking at a path, website, protocol, some host name followed by path of the file, it is URI, and we can also call it as URL. Okay. Now, in this, tell me what is the definition of this? In this, HTTP is a protocol. Who is the host? Satishbala.com is a host. Now, integration.com is a integration.html is a path of the file. What is the port number? Port number is 80. Why 80? Now, we got here. FTP is a protocol. Host is ftp.org. Docs.text.txt is a path of the file. Mail2 is a protocol. User at the rate of test101.com. It is what? This is what? Test101.com is a host. Then news, HOC, culture support. Now this is what? They have just specifically taken the naming service, news, telnet. They have taken specifically taken a URL. They have taken boss, my URL news, The news, they have got a structure. Got it? Now, when you are going with the HTTP protocol, then we need to understand the next one. What is the request format of the message, response format of the message? In what way you are going to send a request, in what way you are going to send a response. So, I will quickly revise the point one more time. What is HTTP? Hypertext Transfer Protocol. HTTP is a hypertext transfer protocol. Is it a connectionless or connectionful? Connectionless. What do you mean by connectionless? Once the client sends the request to server receives the request, disconnect from the client, process the request, and the server will re-establish the connection to the client and send back the response. So is it connectionless or connectionful? Connectionless. Okay. The next one. Is it stateless or stateful? Is it stateless or stateful? Is it stateless? It will not maintain the state. Okay. It will not maintain the state. Now, right. I have a, okay. Let's go back. Then, when you are going with a connectionless connect, okay. It is running on which layer of the OSI? It is running on application layer. What is the underlying structure? TCP. Underlying structure is what? TCP. Transport layer is on the TCP and HTTP is running on your application layer. That's why they say HTTP is running on TCP. But the problem is that TCP is a connectionful. TCP is a connectionful. Okay. That will be when you go through the documentation, sir. Okay. In terms of networking part, there will be a lot of confusion over it. Okay. But we, as a application developer, what we need, we are just looking at. Okay. Now, if you look at the networking side, transport layer is a TCP is working on a connection, stateful interface. It's a stateful. Stateful means it will maintain the state of the data. But HTTP is running on what? TCP. But HTTP is what? Stateless. Okay. Don't look at the networking OSI model of the structure. So just understand as per the developer point of view. As a developer point of view, your HTTP is what? HTTP is a connectionless, stateless. Okay. Now come back. Now what is the requirement of this port number? The client want to communicate on port number, server also has to listen on port number 80. If client want to communicate on port number 80, server also has to communicate on port number 80. Right. Then we have URL, URL, URI. URL, URI, URL. URI is address, URL is naming. I hope I am clear.
By dividing from data, there is also no register. So how you get the node server is reached all the data?
Come again.
How is the client know server will get all the data?
Right. That's what I told. We are not touching the networking. Okay. We are not touching networking. I am not touching engineering. I am touching only. Okay. Basically, there will be acknowledgement format, two-way handshake, three-way handshake. The formats will be there. Okay. Generally, people will be using three-way handshake for the communication. To get the point. Most of the TCP will be using three-way handshake. Three-way handshake means you send a request, again, wait for the acknowledgement. Server will say, I received your request, acknowledgement is sent. Then again the server will send, this is a response, you send me acknowledgement. So every request is followed by acknowledgement. There will be two types of communication, as you asked the question I'm giving you. Right, it's out of the part. Now you are watching you are sending a message. Now I'm sending a message with packet, three packets I'm sending. Satish, Hari, Prasad. In one packet, Satish is there. Second packet, Hari is there. Third packet, okay, Kiran is there. One packet will say complete data. So how many packets I'm sending, how much data I'm sending, the fourth packet will be there. So the fourth packet will be sent. That means, boss, I'm sending this. You are supposed to receive three packets with the following size. Then the moment you send a request, server will send a response to you. Satish, I received your request. Acknowledgement will send. Then server will send. I am sending packet number 1. Then client will send. I received packet number 1. Then server will send packet number 2. I will send packet 2 is received. Packet number 3. So what is that? Three-way handshake. You give a request, acknowledgement, response. Give a request, acknowledgement, response, acknowledgement. For everything is acknowledgement, because if one packet is missing the data, you will be losing it. Suppose you are watching a YouTube video. Okay, you're watching some online movie you're watching. When you're watching online movie, if something is lost in between, no problem. If some frames are missing, well, there are 24 frames per minute, or 80 frames per minute, or 34 frames per minute, whatever the HD you are using. Depends upon HD, the number of frames will be there. Now, if 2 frames miss, doesn't make a difference. Even the flow will happen. But in the data, if one packet misses, right, okay, that's why they go for connection, stateful, and they go for, okay, connectionless. So streaming will be going with what are the two types of protocol you are learning in engineering? TCP and UDP. Right. TCP is used for data transmission, which is a connection for streaming of videos or streaming of audios, they will go for right? Right, boss. Let us not go out of the topic, boss. We take networking concept. Right. So out of information I am giving you, right. So we should give only required information. Right. Right, boss. Now, so still lost a point. I will be unhappy if I don't answer. What is that? I am going to take it. Now I am going to take, like you got a restaurant, you got a resort. In the resort, everybody can come and visit. They have taken a villa is there, which I purchased. Now can everybody visit the villa? Alright, that's a part of the resort only, but I purchased it, I own it. Now it becomes what? My private villa. Now who will use it? Only I will use it. With that port number who can communicate? The port number no other person can use it. The port number is exclusively used for my transmission. Right? That's a private. I am owning it. Okay. So what will happen now by owning it? Don't ask. Okay. Right. So come back. Now we are going with the next. Let us go to the next one. We are trying to understand request format. Okay. Request is coming here. Let us say when you are going for requesting. Look at the format. What is the request format and what is the response format? So let me open here. When you send a request, we will be sending in the form of request template. Whenever you want to send a request or a response, it can be a request message or a response message. Over the HTTP, I am sending a request, you are sending a response. A request message and a response message, what you want to send has to be in this format. So what is this? Message header, blank line which will separate the header and body, blank line which will separate the header and body, and we have a body. So message header, blank line, message body. Message header, blank line, message body. The blank line is to separate the header and body. Every HTTP request and response messages has to be represented in this format. Every HTTP request and response messages has to be represented in this format. What is the format? Header, message header, blank line, and message body. Now, let us understand about the request message. If you are sending a HTTP request, the request has to be in this format. How the request is going to be? If you are sending a request message header, blank line, request message body. Now, every request may or may not contain a body. Every request message may or may not contain a body. But the request message will be in the form of message header, blank line and body. Message header, blank line and body. In the message header, first line is called request line. First line is called request line. Remaining elements are called request header. The first line of the message is called request line. Whenever you are going for HTTP request, request message will contain request message header, blank line, body. In the request message header, the first line is called request line. So what will be there in the first line? What will be there in the first line? Let me give you. The first line will contain what type of request method is this? Is it a get method? Is it a post method? Is it a put method? What type of method is this? Then it contains path of the resource. Then it contains protocol what you are using. The get line will contain what type of request you are making, to which resource you are making, and what is the protocol I am using, version of the protocol I am using. Then the request header, there will be a number of elements here. I'll discuss the elements. Then blank, then followed by body. Blank followed by body. Request message will contain request line, request header element. Request line will contain first one as a method. Which method is that? What type of request you are making? Is it a get request? Is it a post request? Is it a put request? Is it a put request? Options, trace, what type of method is this? Then the resource URL, then the protocol what you are using. Okay. Then we have host. Host is a optional in the HTTP 1.0, but in HTTP 1.1 and above, host is a must. In the version of HTTP 1.1 and above, host name is a must. Then accept. Then I'm saying, I am sending a request to you, but I'm going to accept the data in the form of image only. I am sending the request to you, I will accept the response in the form of English US. I am sending a request to you, I am going to accept the response in the form of GZIP, is a default format. And the user from where I am sending the request. Client is your Mozilla, client is your mobile, client is your mobile. Content length of the content. Content type, what type of body I am sending. Am I sending a XML body? Am I sending a JSON body? What type of body I am sending? Are you getting my point here? What type of body we are sending? So accept images. All these are what? Header elements. All these are what? Header elements which are defined in the form of key value pair. What is the key? Host. What is the value? Test.101. What is the key? Accept. What is the value? Image JF or image JP. What is the key? Accept language value. Key value. So all the elements in the header will be in the form of what? Key value pair. All the elements in the header will be in the form of key value pair. So when you say request message, first line is called request line, remaining elements are called request headers, blank line and body. The same thing I have explained in your documentation what I have given you. This is the documentation I have given you. So we have request line. What the request line will tell you? Request line will have request method name, request URI, HTTP, WhatsApp. Request method name is what? The type of request you are making. What are the methods we have? Example like get, post, head, options, put, then delete, then number of other formats. Request URI, the resource to which you are making a request. Then HTTP version, the version of the HTTP protocol you are using. Now what is this? All these are the request lines. Request line, what is the method? Get. What is the resource you are requesting? Test.html. What is the protocol you are using? HTTP. What is the version? 1.1. Now what is the method you are using? Head. What is the resource you are requesting? Query.html. What is the protocol? HTTP. What is the version? 1.0. What is the method? Post. What is the resource? Index.html. What is the protocol? HTTP 1.1. I hope you are clear with this format. I hope you are clear with this format. Right. The next one. What are the other elements? Request header. Request header will be containing all the elements in the form of what? Key value pair. Request header will be containing all the data in the form of what? Key value pair. Request header will be containing all the elements in the form of key value pair. Like, who is the agent? Who is the agent from where the request is coming? Is it from the mobile? Is it from the window? Okay, Google? Is it from the Mozilla? From where we are getting this request? Authorization. Authorization means boss, recognize me with my session ID. Boss, recognize me with my API key. Boss, recognize me with my access token. Boss, recognize me with my so and so key. So what is that? How should I recognize you? How should I recognize you? There should be some session ID. There should be some API key. There should be some access token. So how I am going to recognize you? I have given you some ID. You just reproduce that ID to recognize you. That ID will be passed as what? Authorization. Then what is the language you are accepting? In which format you are going to accept the language? Which language you are going to accept? What is the format in which you are sending the data? All these will be there in the header elements. Now here we have connection. What is this connection? Once I send a request to you, you are sending a response. After giving a response, should I keep the connection or close the connection? Keep alive. I told. Where we use this? HTTP 1.0. In 1.1, by default is alive. Okay. Then example. Now in this, tell me, host is what? Test101.com. Accept language, accept language, accept encoding, user agent, content length, all these elements are body elements. Sorry, header elements. Okay. I hope you are clear. Clear? So request message will contain what? Request line, request header, line, body. Is the body is a must? Is the body is a must? Body is not a must. Some of the cases bodies will not be there. Like you got a get method. When you go for a get, body will not be there in the request. Okay. We got a head method. The head also will not have any body in the request. So some of the methods will have a body for the request. Some of the methods will not have a body for the request. Am I clear with this format? Right. Then we are going for response. When you are going for a response, when I send a request to you, you are going to send a response to me. When you are sending a response also will have what? Response message header, blank line, and a response body. And all the responses will not have a body. Header will be there for every response, but body is an option. Some of the requests will not send a body, like I told, head request. Head request will not send any body. Right. Some of the responses will not have any body. So header is a must, body is an option. Now in the header, first line is called status line. First line is called status line. What the status line will tell you? Look at the format. What is the status line is telling? What is the protocol you are using? Which version of protocol you are using? Status code and the response page. Status code and response page. When you go to ATM, withdraw the money, you get a code 401, 50, code 200, code 101. Some code will be there in the ATM center. Now error codes on the ATM receipt, you get a code. Look at the code and find. As we go ATM, money is not coming, it's an error. But there will be, if you look at the receipt, there is some number box. At the back end of the ATM, the number and message will be given. Right? Our case what? Inserted the card, money came, success, money didn't come, failure. Right? But the error codes will be there in your receipt. Find the error code and see the message. Now, what is that? This is the code, this is the meaning of the message. Shortcut meaning. They don't give elaborative description. One phrase for conveying the meaning. One phrase for conveying the meaning. So here, when you go to the status line, what is this? HTTP version, status code, raise and phrase. Short mode to understand the meaning of the code. So what is this HTTP version? Look at the what? Which version of HTTP? Status code will be always what? 3 digit. The 3 digit is going to be generally what? 1xx, 2xx, 3xx, 4xx, 5xx. The status code will be what? 1xx, 2xx, 3xx, 4xx, 5xx. 1xx means what? Continue the operation. Still receive the request, we are continuing the operation. 2xx is not. 2xx means what? It is success. It is a request is success. Response is sent. 3xx. When you go to your mobile phones in the Facebook generally, when you go to the Facebook, you will get some links. In the mobile phone, or if you open the mobile phone, the Facebook, The Facebook, some links will come. When you click on this, it will not open the site. It will take you to another site. You get a link, sir. You get a link, sir. You will get a link. It will be a video. When you click on it, it will not play. It will take you to another page. Use some message will be there or video will be there. What is that? Redirecting your request to another page. You actually clicked on this URL. You are requesting this URL, but internally what it is doing? It is redirecting your request to some other page and getting the response. So 3xx is a redirection. It is redirecting your request to the other links. Or it may be proxy servers, it may be a bridge in between. So most of the commercial applications will use what? Bridges in between. So client and server will not be connected directly, they have bridges. When you have a bridge, you send a request to the bridge. Bridge in turn will send a request to the data model, request the data. So what it is doing? Redirecting your request to third party. Are you getting my point? So most of the financial application or very sensitive application, they don't give access to the client directly. They make use of bridges in between or proxies in between. Okay, so they go with the server. Here it is going to redirect your request to some third party, which is going to give a response. Are you getting my point? An example I told you, your Facebook or YouTube. When you click on that, it will take you to some other page. Most in the mobile phones. Most in the mobile phones you find this. Yeah. Redirection. 4xx. What is that 4xx? Problem from the client side. The way you requested, there is a problem with the request format. Okay. 5xx. Everything is good from the client, server has a problem. So the problem from the server side is a 5xx. So what are the status codes we are going to get? 1xx, 2xx, 3xx, 4xx, 5xx. In that 1 is for what? Continuation. 2 is what? Everything is okay, success. 3xx is redirection. 4xx is right side issue. 5xx is server side issue. So generally we encounter what? 3xx or 4xx. 3xx is for what? Redirection. 4xx is for what? Client side issue. The URL is not correct. The authentication is not correct. Okay, the format is not correct. The requested format is different. Expecting extra parameters. So it's a 4xx. 5xx is what? Server side. The request is correct, but the server, I moved the location. The resource is removed from the location, kept in another location. So 5xx server side. So that is what? Status code. It's a 3-digit number. It's a 3-digit number. Then, what is the last one? Reason is the message like we got 200, okay. 404, URL not 4. 500, server, okay. Server side error. You will be getting a message, right? Then, what is this one? What is the protocol? HTTP 1.1. What is the status code? 200. What is the phase? Okay. What is the protocol? HTTP 1.1, 1.0. What is the status code? 404. And what is the message? Not 4. So what is the protocol? HTTP 1.1. What is the protocol? HTTP 1.1. What is the error code? 403. What is the status code? 403. Message is forbidden. Are you clear about this? This is the status line, the first line. By looking at the first line, I know whether the request is success or failure. If it is a success, then I will go and find the response. If it is a failure, I will go and find the errors. Are you getting my point? Looking at this, I have to find out response body will be different, error body will be different. So I should know whether we got a response body or error body. How do you know it? By looking at the status line. Then response header. Response header means they will tell boss, you requested the data, we are sending the data in the form of text. We are sending the data in the form of JSON. Now, when you send a response to me, how should I know I have to deserialize using XML or JSON? You are sending a response to me, you may send the response in the form of JSON, you may send the response in the form of XML, you may send the response in the form of text. You are a server, you are sending a response to me, you may send the response to me any one of the format. Then how do you understand? I will go to the content type and find what type of content they are sending. Is it a JSON or is it a XML or is it text? What is the length of the content? Is the connection is live? How long the connection is going to be live? How long the connection is going to be live? Are you getting my point here? It is a response header elements. There are many more elements. That. Look at this. Now what is this? Protocol is HTTP 1.1. Okay. Status is 200. Phase is okay. The remaining things. All these are header elements and this is the body. And this is the body. So I hope you got the idea about now the basic idea about what is HTTP protocol, right? What is the request format? What is the response format of messages? Everyone has followed this? Clear? Clear for everyone? Right? Clear for everyone? Still anyone has any queries? Any queries on this? Everyone has followed this? Clear for everyone? Once again, am I clear? Am I clear for everyone? Am I clear? Sure. Sure. Right? Any other queries? Clear? Okay. So let us go to the next. Now, we have seen the general discussion about HTTP protocol till now. We didn't touch the Salesforce. Now, how this HTTP is implemented in the Salesforce is what we need to understand. Now, we have seen HTTP is good, but now we need to see how this HTTP protocol is used in the Salesforce. In the Salesforce, if you want to use a JSON, use a JSON system namespace, JSON class, JSON generator class, JSON parser class, JSON token. If you want to implement XML in the Salesforce, DOM is the namespace, document is the class, XML node is the class. Similarly, if you want to implement HTTP, what is the classes they are defined? We had a predefined classes here. What are they? HTTP class, HTTP request class, HTTP response class. There are three classes which are defined by the Salesforce to support your HTTP protocol operation. To make a web service calls using HTTP protocol. So what are the three classes we have? HTTP request, HTTP response, HTTP. Right. Forget about this Salesforce. In general, let us discuss. If I want to send a request, what are the things that I have to put? You saw the request message format and response format. Now tell me, what are the things we need to? What are the things we require to send a request? First, URL. URL to which I am making a request, or I can say URL to which I am making a request. This URL is nothing but to which URL you are making a request. Second one, what type of request? Is it a get, post? Right. Then what else we are going to give? You are going to put header elements. You are going to put header elements. Right. If you want to make a request to which URL you are making a request, what type of method is this? And what are the header elements? Because the request message has the same. The fourth one is, if you are trying to send any body, send the body. So what are the four elements we are going to, what are the four elements we have to set? Understand the URL of the request, understand what type of request is this, and put the elements in the header, put the elements in the body. Am I right? If you want to send a request, these are the four things we require. What to which URL you are making a request, what type of method is this, what type of method is this, then we need to understand what are the elements you are going to put in the header. You have very specific restrictions, like I want to accept only JSON, I want to accept only XML, I want to accept only in English, I want to accept only GIF format. You have any restrictions, then put them in header. And what is the body you are sending to the server? What is the data you want to send it to the server? So these are the four elements we need to understand. To understand these four elements, first one, what is this? Endpoint. If you want to set the endpoint, we have set endpoint. This is the method which is available in the HTTP request class to set the URL of the request. HTTP request is for what? Creating a request message. HTTP request is for what? Creating a HTTP request message. If you want to create a request message, what is the first thing that I have to set? What is the endpoint to which you are making a request? So we have a method called set endpoint. Then we have set method. What is the method? Set method. What are the methods we have? We have get, post, head, put, delete. These are the supported operations and generally used operations. What is the first one? Get. What is the meaning of get? Methods. What is the meaning of get? In the server, I have some data. This is a server we have. Now, this guy is requesting the data. What are you asking us? Get me the phone number of Satish. This guy is asking, get me the phone number of Satish. Get me the phone number of Satish. He is requesting the phone number of Satish. So he is going to give a response. So what are you requesting? You are requesting the data which is there in the server. If you are requesting the data which is there in the server, it is called a get method. It's called as what? Get method. Get is what? If you are trying to request the data which is there in the server, then we call it as a get method. If you are a get method, it will not have any body. Get method will not have any body. Everything that you want to send, get method will not have any body. If it doesn't have any body, what is the data you want to send? I want to send a data called Satish. Listen to the format carefully. Once again, listen to the format. Generally, if you want to send a request, how do you send it? Request line, request sender. Whatever the data you want to send, I am going to send it in the body. Generally, if you want to pass data, what is the data I want to pass? Employee name. Employee name Satish. I am requesting, boss, I want Satish phone number. What is the data you want to pass? Employee name equal to Satish. If I have a body, I will put the data in the body and send it. But when you take a HTTP request, for the get method, if you take a HTTP request for a get method, we will not have body, we will have only request line. This is for what? Get. If you are taking the method as a get, what will be there? Only header will be there, body will not be there. When there is no body, how do you pass the data? I was supposed to pass the data. What is the data? Satish. I was supposed to pass the data called Satish, but there is no body. As there is no body, whatever the data you want to pass, you have to pass using URL only. You have to pass using what? URL only. EMP name. You have to pass the data using what? Why? Get method. What is the meaning of get? Boss, the data which is available on the server, I want to retrieve the data. You are requesting the data which is there in the server. So you are not sending any sensitive information. I am not sending a sensitive information. Sensitive information is available on the server. Server is going to send me the sensitive information. As my data is not a sensitive, what I am going to do? I don't have a body. So every data I want to send it to the server using a get method should be sent using a URL. Did you get my point? Once again I am repeating. Get method means what? Data which is there in the server, you are fetching the data from the server. Request the data which is available in the server. When you are requesting the data which is in the server, we say method as get. If you define the method as a get, what will happen? Request message will not have body. As there is no body, if I want to send any data to the server, the data has to be sent using URL. The data has to be sent using URL. Is the point was clear? Okay. Second one, what is that? Post. What is the meaning of post? What is the meaning of post? Post means the same story. Now, so what is this? Using a web service, the data what is available here, I want to save it to this. So what you are trying to do? Client is trying to send some data to the server. You are trying to create some data in the server. When the client want to create any data in the server, the request has to be what? Post is what? Client is posting the data to the server. If the client want to insert any data to the server, the method will be what? Post. The method is what? Post. Now, when you are posting the data, it will be a sensitive data also. There is a reason. Request will have header and body. Request will have header and body. Whatever the data you want to post, you have to put the data in the body and send it. So when you go for a post method, it will have header and body. Whatever the data you want to send, the data should be kept in the body and sent to the server. So post is what? You are trying to post some data to the server, right? Then we have put. Put is what? Already some resource is there which you are trying to replace. You are trying to replace the resource. I told. Put this data. When you say put this data, the data which is available in the server, you are replacing it. The data which is there in the server, you are replacing it. Most of the times, we will not use a put, we will use post only. Okay, 99% in place of put, we will use a post only. But there is a method available, but 99% will go with what? Post only. We go with the post only. Put is to replace. Suppose I want to delete the data which is there in the server. If you want to delete the data which is there in the server, again what happens? Nobody. Because you are not sending any data. You are trying to delete the data. Then what happened? Only when you say delete, then what happened? It will delete the data from right box. What we have? Get, post, put, delete. Get, post, put, delete. Then we also have head. Head is what? I don't want the response. I want the header of the response. When I send a request to you, what you are going to send? Response header, response body. Now I don't want the response body. I want the response header. Suppose you are sending a request. I want to know what is the length of the response I am going to get. I am not interested on the response. I am interested on the size of the response. Based on the size of the response, I have different format of action. So what I want? I don't want the response body. I want only response header. Then I'll go with what? So now we have get, put, post, delete, head. Now I have some URL. On this URL, there are 4 methods available. URL is only one. On that URL, how many methods are available? Get operation, post operation, put operation, delete operation. But how do I know what all the operations are available on that URL? On this URL, what type of operations I can perform? I want to know all the operations that can be performed. Then I'll go for what? I want to know, I'm not interested to make a request to you. I'm interested to find out what are the operations or methods available on this URL. On this URL, what type of request I can make? Can I make a post request, get request, delete request? I want to know type of request I can make on this URL. I'm not making a request for the response. I'm making a request to find out what type of services are available on this URL. What type of methods are available in this URL. Right? All these are what? Method types. You have to specify. 99.99% we go with what? Get and post. 99.99% will be generally using what? Get method and post method. Get is what? Getting the data from server. Post is what? Posting the data to the server. Okay. So how do you keep this one? To support this, I told you. Look at the point. Let's repeat. If you want to create a HTTP request, what is the first thing that we need to understand? Endpoint. So how do you set the endpoint? Set endpoint. Then what is the second one? What type of method? Set. To be get or set or enqueue. Third one. Then what is the endpoint is clear? What is the method is clear? What is the next one we require? Header. You want to put the elements in the header. How the elements in the header can be kept? I told you, elements in the header are going to be in the form of key value. Elements in the header are going to be in the form of key value. So how you keep it? Set header e comma value. So example, set example the authorization. Like this. Header elements. Set endpoint, set method, set header. Then we have next set body. Then we are going to keep body. So what is the next one? Body. When you are going for a body, set the body. So these are the major methods what we require. So what was this? Set the endpoint, set the method, set the header, set the body. While setting the body, we have different format. You want to set the block format of body. You want to set the XML format of body. So we have different other formats. Setting the block format, setting the XML format, different format. But core methods are what? Set endpoint, set method, set header, set body. These are the core methods of HTTP request. These are the core methods of HTTP request. Are you clear about this format? Right. Now, at the same time, if you want to get whatever the request you are sending, you are writing a test classes. While writing a test classes, I want to know URL, get endpoint. Then what we have? Get. Okay, header. So what we use? Get. If you give a key, you get a value. Then, are you getting? Get endpoint, get method, get key, get body. All these are what? Methods which are used to retrieve the information what you set. In the test classes, we are going to use them. Okay. In the test classes, we are going to use the getter methods. Look at the format now. Once again, now we'll go with first HTTP request class. What is this? Set endpoint, get endpoint. I hope you got the meaning of it. Set method, get method. You have get method. Then similarly, set body, get body. Right. Set body as block. Binary data if you want to set body as block. Get body as block. Then I told you, set a document body, XML. Get a document body. Set compressed, then we are going to use set timeout. Set header, get header, set a timeout. By now, the meaning of the methods are very clear. Timeout. Timeout is how long I have to wait before I close the connection. I told timeout 30 seconds. Within 30 seconds, one communication has to happen. So means either from the server or client, one request has to go, one message has to go. Otherwise, the connection will be lost. So I hope all these methods are clear for you. Once again, I'll go from the methods. I'll start from the beginning again. Set endpoint. This is for what? Setting the endpoint URL. What is the next one? Get endpoint. Whatever the endpoint you set, if I want to get it, get endpoint. We use in the test class. Getters will be used in the test classes. Set method. What type of method is this? Then get method. What did you set? Set body. Get body. Right? Set body as block. Get body as block. Set a document body. Document body is for what? XML document. What here? DOM.document object. Then get document body. Then we have set compressed. Do you want to compress the data and send it? Set compressed. Then we have get compressed. Set header, get header, set timeout. So majorly what are the methods we have? Endpoint, Okay. Endpoint, method, header, body, and last one is what? Time mode. Apart from this, what did you find? Apart from this, what are other things we find? Compressed. Okay. Set, compressed. Similarly, we got get compressed. Then what is that? Okay. Set, block body. So we are sending a binary data. Binary data. If you want to send a binary data, now tell me when you send a binary data, right? You want to send a file, image. You want to send a file or image. Then com.document. Right. So majorly, I hope everything is clear. These are substitute, but these are the measures. The top four are the major. 4 plus 4 8 and 3 plus 3 6. Right. These four are the major ones. I hope you are clear. You are clear with these methods? Clear for everyone? Similarly, let us understand the response message. How to create a response message in the Salesforce. If you want to create a response, everyone is clear with this. You will not write box. Everything I explained is already written in the documentation. Every point is available there. That also I only made. So you will not find a difference. Listen for. Now we are going with HTTP response. When you want to go with the HTTP response, in the response, what are the things we are going to get in the response? First, you are going to get the status. What are you going to get? Status. First time status. Success, okay, status. Status. Then status code. Status code. Then you are going to get header. Then you are going to get what? Am I right? These are the four elements what we need to understand from the response. What is the status message? What is the status code? What are the elements are there in the header? And what is there in the body? There are four elements. So what are the methods we have? Get status. Look at the format. Get body. Fine. Started with the body. Body. You are sending the body in the form of what? Blob. So body will come in the form of what? Get the blob as okay. Get body as blob. Get body as blob. Next, get body as document. Get body as blob. Get body as document. Then get header. If you give the header, you are going to get the value. Right. Get header keys. All the header elements you want to find out. Get status. Get body. Get status. Get body. I hope you are clear with this format. Methods are clear for you. Get body. Get body. Get body. Get body as blob. Get body. Okay. Get body document. Get header, get all the header elements, get the status. Similarly, for every header, there will be a set. That's used for what? Testing purpose. In the request, set. In the response, get. In the request, set. In the response, get. Get header, get header keys, get header keys, get header, get status, get body as document, get body as blob. So these are the getter methods. These are the getter methods. So in the response, what are the things we are interested in? Status, status code, header, body. Status code, header, body. Is that what's clear? People have followed this? People have followed? Okay. Let us not by heart know the generalized theme story. Then let us go to the next step. Now what is your request now? If I send a request, then only I get a response. I will send a request, I will get a response. If I send a request, I will get a response. So how do you send a request? If you want to send a request to the server, then we require a method which is called send. Send is the method which will send a request and which will return you response. So what is the method we require? Send. What is the purpose of this send method? It will send a request to the server, get the response from the server. Where is this send method defined? This send method is defined in HTTP. This send method is defined in HTTP. Now HTTP is the class which contains the method called send, which will send the request and receive the response. Now tell me what are the three classes we have? We have HTTP class, which is having a method called send, which will send the request and receive the response. What is the second class we have? HTTP request. HTTP request is for what? HTTP request is for what? HTTP request. This is used to form HTTP request message. HTTP request is the class which is used to form HTTP request message. HTTP response. What is this? It is a class which is used to form HTTP response sent from the HTTP response message sent from the server. Request, response, and HTTP. HTTP request, HTTP response. These are the three classes which are available to handle the logic of your HTTP protocols in the Salesforce. Right, Amma? Everyone has got the complete story about the HTTP. Basic story is clear for everyone. Clear? Now let us start with the beginning. I'll revise all the points one more time before I go for examples. First, HTTP is what? Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Is it only the HTTP protocol we are going to use? What is the protocol? Protocol is a set of rules which both the systems are obeying to communicate with each other. Across the network, if two systems want to communicate, they need to obey a set of rules. Those set of rules are called protocols. Name some of the protocols available in the market. HTTP, FTP, SFTP, Telnet, okay, TCP, UDP, IP, that number of L2, the number of protocols what we have. Okay, next we are trying to understand. In that, what is the properly used protocol? HTTP is the properly used protocol. What is that HTTP? Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Why hypertext? That in the body, the text contains hyperlinks. Okay. The next one. Next we have HTTP. The HTTP, what version we are following right now? 2.0 is there, but 1.1 is the most popular. What is the difference between 1.0 and 1.1? 1.0 is not persistent. 1.1 is persistent. What do you mean by persistence? Okay, if you establish a connection, one request is completed, automatically connection is lost. Second request, again I have to make a new connection. But when you say persistence, whatever the connection you established, using the same connection, you can make number of transactions. Okay. Now, HTTP 1.0, if you want to make it persistent, what should I do? Keep alive. Okay, keep alive, we can use, or we can go with a concept like cookies, session management, and other topics. Session redirect, session cookies, other topics are available. For Java.NET if you use, you'll be finding a session management, cookies, and session redirect. The concepts are available. But in the Salesforce, we don't need that. Okay. The next one, the third one. Then once you've gone with this, we are going with a HTTP. In the HTTP, what are the things we require? First, we need to understand URL. What is the URL? Uniform Resource Locator. URL can be what? URI or URL. So URL can be a URI or URL. URI is Uniform Resource Identifier. It's the address of the resource. Uniform Resource Name is the name of the resource. To identify the resource uniquely, there is a name given. Right. Now, every URI is a URL, but every URL is not a URI. Okay. The next, when you are going for HTTP, we are going to send a request, we are going to get a response. Every request or response message is going to have, every request message or response message is going to have header, blank line, and body. We are going to have header, blank line, and body. If you go with a request message, we are going to have request header, blank line, request body. Request body is a optional. Request message body is a optional. Header is a must, but body is an optional. In the header, what is the first line? Request line. In the request line, what we are going to find? We are going to find a method. Which type of method you are using? Then URI. To which resource you are making a request. And third one is protocol and version. Then next we are going to have headers. Next we are going to have header elements. Name some of the header elements. Like we got connection, content type, accept language, accept encoding, authorization, okay, client, user agent. All these are what? Some of the header elements. Then HTTP response. Response also will have header, blank line, body. Body is a optional. In the response, what is the first line? Status. What is the first line? Status. In the status we have protocol, WhatsApp, status code, status message. Then we are going to have the body. Right. So in the Salesforce, how are you getting this? In the Salesforce, how are you getting this? In the Salesforce, we are going to get okay HTTP class, HTTP request, HTTP respond. What is the default protocol for default port number for HTTP? 80. Is it always 80? You can modify if you want as per your requirement. This is the story. As the top end we have seen. Everyone is clear with this concept? Good with this? Clear for everyone? Any queries? Any queries from anyone else? Any queries? Any queries from your end? Right, boss? Clear for everyone. So let us, yeah.
URL and UI. And the use RA. Whenever the user puts the login ID and password, then after that the URL will create.
See, if you want to log into the Gmail, you enter your username password, open the Google site, Gmail site, or you open the Gmail site and enter the username password. Right. So what is the Gmail site? The URL. Okay. So first URL is required, then you are going to give the authentication. Username password is authentication data. Is the data what you want to pass? Where are you passing this data? To that URL. So unless you have a URL, you cannot pass the data. You are entering a username password means what? You are providing the data of your username password. The request you are putting your username password. As a body you are putting your username password. Which one you are sending? To the URL. Without URL, no other information will be available. But it's the URL which is required.
In the LinkedIn, when I open the LinkedIn.com, after that,
Hold. You open LinkedIn.com. So that's what URL. When you made a URL, response came as a page, UI page. Response came as a UI page. Okay, right. That's the first thing. You made a request to the URL called LinkedIn.com. Then the page opens. It's a response. What response? I told you 3 types of response will be there. What are the 3 types of response? Business integration, UI integration, business integration, and data integration. Now when you say LinkedIn.com, what is happening? You are making a UI integration. You are making a UI integration. The UI response came for LinkedIn homepage. Right? The homepage is there. Then on the homepage you want. Now the page came. Now I am entering my data. You are entering your data. Where are you entering this data? Don't confuse box. Okay. Now you open the page. Now where are you entering the data? In a page. Okay. When you submit this, what will happen? This data will go to this URL. When you submit the data what you entered, this data will go to this URL. Now unless I tell the destination, how can you transfer the data? Right? You only have a data, but where do you want to send the data? Where do you want to send the data? I cannot enter my Gmail username password on the LinkedIn. So first when you want to enter the username password, you should know who is the destination. When you open a LinkedIn, I'll enter LinkedIn username password. On the LinkedIn, if I have a Gmail username password, I cannot give a endpoint URL as LinkedIn, right? You have a username password of LinkedIn, you have a username password of Gmail. Which username password you are sending? Right? First decide the destination, then enter the username password. So that is the URL. LinkedIn.com is a URL. Username password is the data. Still not satisfied.
actually URL required for the login ID and password. Whenever now
That's what. Okay, you're jumbling the question and confusing yourself. Okay. Now, what do you want to open box?
actually
Answer my question. I'll give you an answer for you. What do you want to open?
actually whenever the people send the URL
Right. Stop.
copy and paste is automatically open.
Don't give scenarios. Okay. You want to open satishmala.com. Okay. Now, satishmala.com is what? URL. URI or URL? URI is also a URL, right? That's what I told. Every URI is a URL. You call it as a URI or URL, both are same. So what did you open? You opened satishmala.com. That is what? URI or URL. Every URI is a URL only. You open a URL. Okay. You open a URL. Now the page came. Okay. Where are you entering your data? Username, password. You are entering. Now you are sending this username, password to whom? Now you want to log in. Where you want to log in? You want to log in. Where you want to log in? If you want to log in, you open a satishmala.in. Now satishmala.in is a host. Is a host. Now when you click on the log sign in, what are you getting here? What are you getting here? Sajishmala.in slash student slash login. Now to this URL, you are sending this data. Right? Right, boss. People got it. Right, boss. You talk to me after class. Let's take a break.